In the summer of 2020, I worked in Plainfield, Wisconsin, for a crop dusting operation. No, I wasn't a pilot, but I mixed pesticides and loaded them into the aircraft. We'd work long hours, and I usually got off around 8 p.m., but I'll usually have some other busy work to finish after all three aircrafts landed and taken care of. One night in late July, it was around 10 p.m., and I had to fill up a jerry can with kerosene. The fuel was in a shed on the edge of the property, and it was in a huge cornfield. As I walked to the shed, I had my flashlight in one hand and the jerry can in the other, and I saw what looked like someone standing on the edge of the cornfield. And I assumed it must have been a farmer or maybe just one of my coworkers. So I shined my light on the figure, and what I saw was an 8-foot gray shadow figure, and I said something like, "Hey, what's up?" Still assuming that it was a farmer and he was just doing his job. After I called out to it, it turned around and just looked at me for a second, and then turned back to tend to a crop. It's strange because I wasn't scared at the moment of this encounter, and I continued to walk to the shed and refill the jerry can. It wasn't until I lied down in bed and the reality of what happened struck me. At first I thought it was an alien, but after further research, I concluded that encounter was a Fieldgeister. The wiki info states that a Fieldgeister is a corn demon of German folklore. They are said to appear when corn is at its highest, which it was at the time of my encounter, and are supposed to protect the crop for whatever reason. I'm too lazy to give a full description, but I recommend giving it a wiki research. And I also want to say that the state of Wisconsin does have a large Polish and German population and replicates some of the same environmental conditions as well, which only supports my suspicion of why I encountered it at this very place and time. Has anyone ever heard of a Fieldgeister before? I'm not the most religious person in the world, but this encounter my mom had makes me truly believe in evil. This took place in the early 2000s, before I was even born. My dad was away on a business trip, leaving my mom home alone. She was taking a nap and had a dream that she was at church listening to a sermon. Standing in the pew behind her, there were three men in black suits. One of them leaned into her ear and made a very demonic growl. She woke up and could not breathe. She exited the bedroom and was finally able to catch her breath, but it was as if the bedroom was completely deprived of oxygen. My childhood dog Cooper even went into the room and ran right back out. She left the house and was gone for the entire day, terrified of what happened. She eventually came home and called a church friend of hers. Her name was Edith. She was a very religious lady who had never been to our house before, but what happens next will freak you out. My mom was sitting at our kitchen table when Edith told her to close all the curtains and blinds in the house. Edith started to pray. "You will not enter through that window. You will not enter through their back door. You will leave their property. I don't care if you have to go over the fence or through the fence. You will leave them alone." My mom, in tears by that point, asked Edith what she would have seen if the curtains were open. Edith replied, "You would have seen three men in black suits. I take it that these were demons who disguised themselves to be earthly." Edith, who had never been to our house, somehow knew exactly the layout and where the demons were. She also told my mom that they were been living in her walk-in closet in the bathroom. This may sound fake. I completely understand you thinking that. But this is as real as I can make it sound because it happened. We eventually got our house Christianized and we removed all of the bad spirits. 2020 was a lot of things, but 2020 was the beginning of my worst days. It was an average day in May, or so I thought. I used to keep a small wooden little league bat next to my door as a reminder of my peepaw's love. My mom grabbed it, and as I had asked her not to, she dismissed me. My mom had already been a bit wacky at this point. She even threw tantrums when she didn't get her way. She had my therapist keep me on antidepressants despite the side effects I was given. So, to this day, I still called my stepdad, who is at this time no longer with my mom. I began to vent about how much worse it was getting at home. My stepdad was a huge support for me even though he was no longer with my mom. We made plans and he went to his girlfriend's and we agreed to call later. It was around 5 p.m. so I went to call my stepdad back but got to voicemail. So I made dinner for my brother assuming that my stepdad was busy. But then 8 p.m. came around and my mom wasn't home. I began to worry. 9 p.m. voicemail, 10 p.m. voicemail, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. I had fallen asleep and then 3 hours later was shook harshly to wake up. My mom had a small bruise on her neck and her face was swelling a little. She started to now show crocodile tears that my stepdad tried to murder her and we were all in danger. I felt that my heart break as if the whole world was falling apart. She began to show off his mugshot and as some kind of trophy. I distinctly her I distinctly remember her saying, "I got him good." I couldn't stand to look at her and the mugshot of the man I also called my dad. But I became suspicious after my mom kicked me out at 17. I tried to make contact, but when I did, after she picked up and said hello, I said, "Dad, I don't feel safe, and I want the whole truth of what happened that night." He said, "I'm sorry, I can't. You shouldn't have called." I broke down, and then the next few days later, my mom had called to harass me, as I had broke a restraining order she had. Fast forward, I was forced to move back in, but she put me through abuse, hardship, poor living conditions, and constant work, so I could fail at a mental evaluation. But I stayed strong. I got hit B, and she abandoned me a month later. She took everything, even my ESA for the CPTSD I was dealing with. And I had been told my mom, she talks about the same way as my stepdad. When I turned 18, I instantly reached out to my stepdad, and to my horror, he confirmed the conclusion that I had made. He told me how my mom had gotten mad at his girlfriend, this time drunk, and convinced her that my stepdad SA'd her, and convinced her to beat my stepdad to death and claim self-defense. And he said that he had seen God knows how many baseball bats, but before he almost got killed, he said he remembers seeing his girlfriend standing over him. I saw his medical report. Cracks in the skull, a broken rib, stitches everywhere, and a significant blood loss, and bruises everywhere. I'm pretty sure my mom knows that I know everything, but has attempted to scare me into running back to her, even offering my ESA back if I did. But I know she can't be trusted because I know she wants to silence me. I'm the only one who ever spoke out ever.